Okay, so let's just dive right in. You have seen it absolutely everywhere, on TikTok, on your Instagram feed, and all those best-selling books. Manifestation. This incredible idea that you can literally think your dreams into reality. But is it some kind of cosmic magic, a really powerful psychological tool, or maybe just a huge misunderstanding? We're going to unpack all of it. A lot of the time, it all starts with this quote right here, from the brilliant mind of Nikola Tesla, of all people. A key to the universe. I mean, wow. It's mysterious, it's super alluring, and it's basically become the spiritual anchor for one of the most viral manifestation trends on the entire planet. And this is that trend, the 369 method. The whole idea is pretty simple, actually. You pick one specific thing you want, one goal, and you write it down. 3 times right when you wake up, that's to set your intention for the day. 6 times in the afternoon to kind of realign and refocus, and then 9 times right before you go to sleep to really impress it on your subconscious mind. It's a very structured ritual that promises to turn a simple thought into your actual reality. Now, if this whole thing feels a little familiar, well, that's because it is. The 369 method is really just the latest version of an idea that was made famous by Rhonda Byrne's massive phenomenon, The Secret. It boiled this whole complicated process down to 3 super simple steps. Ask, believe, receive. That's it. A straightforward promise that completely captivated millions of people. But here's what's so interesting. This secret, it isn't new, not at all. In fact, the core principles of manifestation have been floating around for well over a century, just getting repackaged and rebranded for each new generation. And you can really see how deep the roots go when you look at this timeline. The journey starts way back in the 1830s with something called the New Thought movement, which basically argued that our thoughts physically shape our world. From there, you get these foundational books like The Science of Getting Rich, and then Neville Goddard's Feeling is the Secret, which really emphasized emotion as the fuel for creation. These ideas were kind of simmering for decades until, boom, The Secret made them a global sensation in 2006. And that leads directly to the viral TikTok trends we're seeing right now. It's the same core idea, just, with a new hashtag. So, all of this brings us to the big question, right? Are these practices tapping into some kind of unseen universal energy? Or are they just engaging some really powerful and scientifically understood processes that are happening inside our own brains? So let's look under the hood for a minute. It turns out, neuroscience actually has a lot to say about why these techniques can feel so magical. And spoiler, it's not really about vibrations, it's more about biology. This is kind of where we can translate one language into another. So on one side, you have all the popular terms you hear, the universe, vibrations, energy, believing. And on the other side, you have the neurobiological equivalents, the reticular activating system, neuroplasticity, dopamine, and acting. So this isn't about dismissing belief at all, but about understanding the actual mechanism behind it. Okay, so this first one is crucial, your reticular activating system, or RAS. The easiest way to think about it is like your brain's spam filter. It decides what you notice. You know how it is, right? You decide you want to buy a certain type of car, and then all of a sudden, you see that car everywhere. The cars were always there. You just programmed your RAS to finally pay attention to them. So when you set a clear intention, you're not really sending an order to the cosmos. You're just telling your own brain what to look for. Now, the next piece of this puzzle is neuroplasticity. Your brain is not fixed. It can actually change. There's a famous saying in neuroscience, neurons that fire together, wire together. Every single time you repeat a thought or an affirmation, like you do in the 369 method, you're making a neural pathway stronger. You are literally carving new mental trails, just like walking the same path in the snow over and over, making that new belief feel more automatic and more real to your brain over time. So, we can actually reframe ask, believe, receive into a really practical, brain-based model for change. First, you set a clear intention. That programs your RAS. Second, you use repetition to leverage neuroplasticity and literally rewire your beliefs. Third, you visualize the reward, getting that job, finishing that marathon, which triggers dopamine and fuels your motivation to keep going. And fourth, you use mental rehearsal to build the neural blueprints that make actually taking action so much easier. See? It's an active process of training your own brain. But of course, there's a flip side to all of this. Believing is incredibly powerful, but it is not everything. And we have to draw a really clear line between having a helpful mindset and slipping into what could be some pretty harmful magical thinking. And this quote just captures the risk perfectly. I mean, what happens when you believe with every fiber of your being, but you don't get the result you wanted? Well, the logic of manifestation can turn inward, and it can create this sense of silent guilt. You start thinking, oh, I must not have believed hard enough, or what's wrong with me? And that can lead to some really dangerous side effects. People can start mistaking visualizing success for actually preparing for it. Or they might avoid getting critical feedback because it just feels too negative. So they end up protecting their feelings instead of actually improving their skills. And ultimately, it can make your confidence super fragile because it becomes totally dependent on outcomes that are, let's be honest, often way outside of your complete control. So, where does that leave us? What's the real takeaway here? How can we use these powerful psychological tools without falling into the traps of magical thinking? Well, I think this table really sums it all up. The practices themselves, they're powerful. Goal clarity isn't about telling the universe your order, it's about programming your brain's attention filter, your RAS. Visualization doesn't actually bend reality. It primes your brain's dopamine circuits to get you motivated to act. And affirmations don't really raise your vibration. They use repetition to physically rewire your brain. But just look at that last row, taking action.
That is the non-negotiable step. It's the part that turns all of this inner work into outer results, and it's the part that the science says you absolutely cannot skip. So we'll end with this. Manifestation gives us a really powerful framework for setting our direction and programming our minds for success. But belief is the starting line, it's not the finish line. The real question isn't just what you believe is possible, but what are you actually prepared to do about it?